Why did the Titanic, made in just 1,200 days, sink in just 2 hours? April 10th, 1912 was the day when the world's largest and most expensive, the Titanic, was ready for its first journey today. The day on the Atlantic Ocean was calm, and there was no chance of a distant sea storm. The ship had 1,500 passengers on board, and millions of people were standing on the docks to witness the beginning of Titanic's first journey. Neither did the passengers bid farewell, nor did the Titanic's crew know that the ship, set to depart shortly, had 6 critical mistakes made during its construction that would lead to the worst maritime disaster in history. Today, you will learn about the most expensive, luxurious, and glamorous aircraft of its time, the Titanic, and the 6 mistakes that, if not made, perhaps Titanic wouldn't have crashed today. It would have been famous in the world not due to the crash, but due to its success. So, what were these 6 mistakes that the 40-year experience, captain of Titanic, Edward Smith, didn't notice? Leave aside the 40 years of experience of the captain, even the company operating Titanic, White Star Line, with 107 ships operating experience, didn't catch anyone's mistake. And these mistakes, not even noticed by the company. Like Harland and Wolff, who had more than 500 ships, manufactured before Titanic. The construction of Titanic started in 1907, and after nearly 3 years of hard work by 2,000 workers, the ship was ready. Now the ship was completely ready, but the final test was still pending. When Tata successfully completed its first test run, the marketing of this ship was done in various countries, which was titled Unsinkable Titanic, meaning a ship that will never sink. Where its first journey was supposed to start from the city of Southampton in England on the day of April 10th, 1962, and its destination was the city of New York in America. The cost of traveling in one economic portion of Titanic was $30. But in the honored portion, it worth $150. As a result of this marketing, all the tickets were booked, and finally, the day arrived when Titanic was about to embark on its first journey. Mistake number 1. At exactly 12 p.m. in the afternoon, the Titanic start their first journey. The deadline had been set towards the captain ear that in any case, the goal was to reach New York within 7 days by April 17th. Due to this, Captain started the ship at a very fast pace from the beginning, and this was the first mistake of Titanic. Captain Smith kept the ship's speed high due to the instructions and pressure given by the owners. The reason was to reach New York as quick as possible because it was Titanic's first journey. If it didn't reach New York Times by April 17th, it would have caused significant damage to Titanic's reputation. In the world, any vehicle, whether machine or having many operating procedures involving speed limits, had a part in these procedures, and that part was vibrated at the beginning of the journey. Shortly after, the ship left Southampton's port, so far behind that nothing could be seen beyond the deep blue sea, except for the distant horizon. Mistake number 2, after 3 days of Titanic's journey, passing through France and Ireland. For a while, Titanic had been steadily moving towards New York for the last 72 hours. It was the evening of April 14th, 1912, and silence and fog had enveloped the sea from all sides, reducing the visibility considerably. That night, another external ship, which was just a few hours ahead of Titanic, warned it via wireless about icebergs, meaning floating chunks of ice in the sea. The experts believed that this warning was given at least 6 times, but due to the negligence of the wireless operators, this highly important warning was missed by them. For them, it may have been a normal thing, but this was the second mistake of Titanic's attack. Titanic had the first luxury ship of its kind, and it still had many VIPs. Therefore, all of those was mostly in the service of first-class passengers. If it had been taken seriously in the morning, the whole scene ahead would have been different. Mistake number 3. The ship's speed was too high, and an important warning had been missed by them. Now Titanic, with extreme negligence, continued to sail. into the range of icebergs. Still, it could have been saved by hand because the lookout's ship guard were alert, ready to give Captain the iceberg warning. They had alerts to see even from a distance, but at that moment they didn't have one crucial thing, and that thing was binoculars. Captain was not informed because there was no binoculars, and this was the third mistake of Titanic's attack. Captain Smith received the news when the ship's guard reported that there was an iceberg right in front, large as the size of a football field. But now it was too late because the iceberg was very close. Mistake number 4, because in the Atlantic Ocean, often, these icebergs are present, and many ships has to face these icebergs throughout the year, which large external ships handle with ease. Maybe Captain Smith also thought the same. Upon receiving news, Captain Smith ordered to shut down the engines, and along with it, also gave the order to change the direction of the Titanic. Certainly, Captain Smith made efforts to avoid the iceberg, but the distance was so short that doing anything was in vain. Now the iceberg hit the center of the Titanic, but there was still hope of avoiding it. This hope remained that the iceberg might not cause damage to the ship's body, or perhaps iceberg may be shattered into pieces after the collision. It would be like that if they cannot do the fourth mistake. Experts believe that rivets on the Titanic body was not made of steel but made of cast iron. The work of connecting large pieces of iron is done by rivets, but cast iron is softer than the steel, so the area where the iceberg hit with the Titanic loosed the rivets due to pressure, according to reports. Mistake number 5. Titanic's collision with an iceberg the size of a football field had already occurred, and now water had started to fill the lower part of the ship. The disaster had alerted the crew and passengers, and also Joseph Bruce, the owner of the Titanic, present in the ships at that moment. But still there was hope of the Titanic surviving, because the Titanic was designed in such a way that even if water filled the 3 floors, it could not sink. But unfortunately, due to some mishap, the water crossed the 3 floors and reached the 4th floor. Now the situation was critical. The Titanic was sinking slowly into the cold water of the ocean. Now it was the time of passengers to shift them to lifeboats to save their lives. Captain Smith issued an emergency alert on the radio, hoping for assistance. The plan was to shift passengers to lifeboats, but a 5th mistake at this point showed its impact. The ship, which had a capacity for 32 lifeboats, had only 20 due to some negligence. There were 1,500 passengers, and only 20 lifeboats were available. Mistake number 6. The situation was chaotic, and everyone wanted to board the lifeboats, but it was very few in number. At 12:45 a.m., the first emergency boat was lowered into the first sea, but another mistake occurred, and the 6th mistake was hastily thrown lifeboats into the sea without being fully loaded with passengers. Most of the first-class passengers were given priority. If more passengers had been placed in the lifeboats, fewer more people might have survived. The ship was rapidly sinking into the sea, and at 2:18 a.m., all the lights went out due to a short circuit. The ship broke into 2 parts, and it took 2 hours and 40 minutes for the Titanic to completely sink into the ocean. About 1,500 to 1,600 people died in the cold waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Let me tell you this too, that the water temperature was around -2 degrees Celsius, making survival nearly impossible. If someone tried to jump into the sea, then it will be impossible for him to survive more than 30 minutes in this cold sea. It has been stated that more than 1,600 people were die because many people was familiar with the crew and they were boarded in the ship free of cost. Many peoples were saved, most of them was kids and women. Captain Smith was the last person to jump from the sinking ship because he was busy in saving the lives of people. This video ends with a request for subscribe, likes, shares, and comments because it requires 5 to 7 days hard work to make such type of video. What do you think about this video? Share your thoughts in the comments. Please share, subscribe, and press the bell icon so you'll be the first to know when our next video drops. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.